Welcome to a Friday Reads, where I talk about what I read, what I'm reading, what I hope to get to next. And I guess I should also say this. I didn't say this in any video, but it is something I'm like heavily considering. Considering I'm in a phase in my channel where I must make videos that speak to me. Otherwise, I will be anxious and not do anything because the algorithm's doing weird things. People watch more short form. There's the whole myriad of reasons. And I love doing my Friday Reads, so I'm keeping them. They've not been performing as well as they used to, but I don't care. But also, things that haven't been performing well are wrap-ups. And I think I'm going to get rid of monthly wrap-ups, do Friday Reads, and do quarterly wrap-ups, where I go through everything I read in a quarter. Because that should still only be like 25-ish books. And it'll maybe be a longer video, maybe I'll tier rank it. I haven't really decided, but I feel like I go into enough depth in each Friday Reads, and then if people really want like a whole place, and whenever I feel like a book needs its own review, I'll do that. If you're like, oh no, Angela, I need your monthly wrap-ups, I guess sound off in the comments because I am easily swayed, but that's my current plan. And since last we chatted, I finished 2 things. I read 2 more short works. I'm in the middle of maybe a 5-star read. Very exciting. And I DNF'd a book, I think, that I was disappointed that I DNF'd, but I think it was the right call for me. So let's start with first talking about what I finished. I finished To Shape a Dragon's Breath. It is very good. I'm very excited for the sequel, and my comment section has told me, trilogy. This is a trilogy, and the second book is very good and seems to live up to the hype of the first book. This is what I've learned in my comment section. So, To Shape a Dragon's Breath, it is alternative world, heavily inspired by our North America. Our main character is indigenous, gets a dragon that's more of an indigenous dragon breed, and goes to a dragon school. And magic is based off chemistry. And I just taught valence electrons today, so it's pretty... I geek out about it. Like, in the front of this book, look at their own little periodic table. Super. It doesn't go into it in depth, so if you're like, oh, I hate chemistry, it's not like that hard of a magic system. I honestly was pretty happy with where things went in this book, because I think the world sucks right now. And you know what? I think this book doesn't hide from the suck, but I think you get to feel a tiny bit victorious. And I feel like if you want to feel like that maybe there is hope, like maybe if you want to creatively think of a place where it has a lot of our baggage, but maybe there's a potential that different decisions are made, I think that is valuable. I think that's immensely valuable. I don't think I have other non-spoiler new thoughts. It was familiar and yet unique. If you like how school tropes work, you like the act of them going through a school year, they have classes and exams and breaks and friends. Like, if you like that iteration, I think it's also really nice because one of her classmates is also indigenous, but didn't get to grow up around an indigenous community. And he gets to go back home with her, and I think it led to some really sweet and meaningful scenes, and I really enjoyed that as well. It was just a very pleasant, fun, good time. I'm excited to read the sequel. I don't know exactly when, but probably this year, at some point. The other thing I finished that I haven't talked to you guys about at all is The Employees. And actually, though, I just got home from work, so I'm a little scattered. Before we get into that, I actually want to talk about one of the novelettes I read, because it really does tie into, I feel, To Shape a Dragon's Breath really well. And so that one was called, I think, My Name Zia. Is that what it's called? The Name Zia. And so this is also a school story. We have this person named Zia who had to get rid of parts of her name that are also tied to magic and self to get the money to go to this school. And it's basically, Zia does the exact opposite of, what's her name again? Anakus. Anakus, she is like, no, I'm going to be true to who I am, which is inextricably tied to my culture and how I was raised, etc. Zia kind of assimilates. She is more comfortable in that way. So it definitely explores when people leave their home to go to a new place, whether they choose to assimilate or keep true to their culture. There's not a wrong answer. There's just like, how does one choose to exist and survive? So that's the route Zia goes. And it has a fascinating look at appropriation in the form of these names and how they are used and sold to other students. And it's very dark. So whereas I say this can feel victorious at times. It still has bad moments. It's still rough at times. Like, there is a scene at the end of this book that is rough, and I was unprepared. But I wouldn't say that this was depressing. Whereas My Name is Zia, or not My Name is Zia, The Name Zia, it's pretty dark. I think that one's a pretty dark look at cultural appropriation and assimilation and how you choose to compromise and get by and what does it do to you. I also thought about it in terms of another story I read earlier this month that was also about like what happens when you leave a place and live somewhere else and how does that change you. I think it's I think it's by Samantha Mills, maybe? I don't know. It came out a couple years ago, so it's not a Hugo contender story, but I think there's a sci-fi novel coming out around it. So I'm pretty excited. So that idea might show up on the channel again. But there's just a lot of these thoughts going around, apparently, in the sci-fi community. So that was a novelette I finished. And I guess the short story I finished, just while we're talking about short stories, was Missing Helen, which I really liked because I love a second person story and it's in second person. I love second person. I know it's contentious. I know some people hate it. I love how smooth a second person point of view sounds to the point where I don't always notice it. That's how I get immersed. I know other people get immersed with other things. Use the second person. I'm in the story. You're talking to me. I hear it. And I don't want to spoil this one because I think this one is like pretty fun. I don't know if it's super like groundbreaking. You know, like some people probably would be like, there wasn't a twist there, Angela. What are you talking about? But this is the story of someone processing her husband leaving her for her clone and why that might have been. And how clones work in this world I thought was really cool. So like that little tidbit of world building. But I also think it is a realistic view into how when you don't maintain a relationship or you don't provide honest communication and vulnerability, what can happen to it. And I think I really enjoyed Missing Helen, and it kind of has to do sort of with Helen of Troy, but not really, but that is a reference that is brought up. And so then the last thing I finished that was a novel or novella were The Employees. And I'm talking about it tonight, and I'm really hoping to get more insight into this work. So, The Employees. This is translated, and it is, I think when it was written, it wasn't written as a sci-fi work, it was written as a literary work, and I'm reading it more for a literary book club. But it has sci-fi elements. It is the 22nd century, it is a workplace in a station in space. There are humans and humanoids, and then there's these objects, and they're doing weird things. It definitely falls into my issues of I am a very literal person. And so sometimes when I'm reading literary fiction, I really do need it to be telegraphed to me what's actually happening versus what's a metaphor, because sometimes then I get lost in the sauce. And that happened a little bit here. And again, another thing that's a shame for me, but probably amazing for other people is like a lot of people in their reviews talk about this workplace satire and how it makes fun of corporations and what's expected in a workplace. And I think for me, that didn't really land, and I don't know, again, if that's because I'm just too literal, but I was, like, looking for it, and I didn't find it, so is what it is. I didn't dislike it, and I think it's very experimental and interesting, because it basically has an intro that kind of says, these are a bunch of recordings over the last year and a half of employees, and then it's just all the statements, and you never know really a lot about the people giving the statements. Like, I don't even have a sense if someone did a repeat statement. And you can feel the progression of time because things happen and escalate. So it's a very fascinating way to consume a story. And some things I understood. Like some things I'm like, okay, these are like these sci-fi things and I understand what's happening here and I can connect the dots. And then other things I'm just like, what are these objects? Like there's some things where I'm still like that. So yeah, it reminds me a little bit, honestly, and I just had my review of Area X and stuff, but it was a little bit like, I feel like I'm not meant to really try to answer this question, but like you made it such a point, I would like to know the answer to my questions. So I'm hoping to have some other dots connected for me. A joke I made in my Discord, especially because this book has referencing to upgrades and programming. It's just like, I'm simply not the person programmed to understand every facet of this book. And I think that's fine. It was very short. Something I was also very curious about, because I'm reading an Ursula K. Le Guin book right now, which I'll talk about next. And I was thinking, I bet this would be great for the Ursula K. Le Guin Award in Fiction. I bet if this wasn't nominated, it should have been. The first year that we had this award, this was nominated. So, like, it definitely fits that vein. It is, like, literary sci-fi. Like, it's a sci-fi book. I can feel pretty confident in saying that. It's just going to be incredibly experimental. I did not enjoy this. But it was like the longest 120 pages I've ever read, especially because these aren't even full pages. It was so sporadic and short and terse, and I was so confused and not in the intrigued sort of way, mainly because I was right to assume that the book wasn't really gonna, like, give me the answers that I want. But I actually like the ending. I do enjoy the ending, and how it leaves things to our imagination to some extent. So those are all the things that I have finished, and now I'm in the middle of 2 things. And since I already mentioned Ursula K. Le Guin, we'll start with her. The Dispossessed, a classic. People talk about it all the time. It's like this, Left Hand of Darkness, and something with the forests, and her Earthsea trilogy. Or it's more than a trilogy, but Earthsea series. I have read The Left Hand of Darkness. I read it before YouTube. Ryan's read it. He might have even talked about it on the channel. I don't even know. I find that her writing style is fairly dry and very 20th century science fiction. Like, whoa. Like, I don't really know how to describe the quality of it. I also felt it when I was reading Foreigner, but there is a certain prose style that exists in 20th century sci-fi that doesn't always work for me. Not every author does it. Bejeweled didn't do it, or Octavia Butler didn't do it, but like, a lot of our Golden Age adjacent works definitely have this denser, drier, removed prose style. So we have Shevik. I think that's how you say his name. And he is leaving his planet to go be on this other planet, and these 2 planets are basically the moon for each other. And they have very, very different political and economic systems, and they have been separated for like 200 years. And he, at the start of the book, we see him traveling to this other place. I can't remember how to say the name. Is Eurus or something like that? It's very sci-fi-y, and I'm audiobook listening to it, so I have no idea how to spell these things. I just know them when I hear them. And his planet is more like pure socialism, and the planet he's traveling to is like our capitalism. And I don't remember when this book was written. I want to say the 1970s. And it's not trying to be like he's from a place like how socialism ran on our Earth, because the whole point is there isn't hierarchy, so there wasn't a totalitarian government. And that actually does exist on the planet he is traveling to. And he is a physicist. And he wants to connect things. He wants there to be shared resources and knowledge. He wants to be the bridge between these 2 worlds, because he doesn't think either world is particularly perfect. And I think that's fair. They're both extremes of what they are, and there are pros and cons to that. And he just happens to be very intelligent, and he has a bargaining chip. And that's what the story's been doing. And I'm like 40% of the way in, and I don't dislike it. But sometimes it's very, like, of its time, writing style qualities don't work amazingly for my brain. Especially because, like, there's just, like, a weird sci-fi way of, like, thinking of sex and being repressed that keeps happening here. Like, if I didn't know that this was written by a woman, I would have thought it was written by a man sometimes. Not because it's, like, misogynistic. Like, it is, but on purpose. Like, that's, like... I understand what it's doing with that theming, but just, like, how it talks about this person's relationship to desire and sex feels like things I've read in, like, 1984 or Fahrenheit 451. I don't know. It just feels very, like, dry and classic, and, like, I can't relate to it. Obviously, probably some people can, but, like, I'm just like, this is weird. Like, I wouldn't connect those thoughts, Shevik. Like, I just simply wouldn't. So, yeah, those are basically my thoughts so far. And I also think something, and I'm really enjoying talking about this in my Discord. This is our Patreon buddy read, so it's been, like, pretty fun to talk about so far, because 4 or 5 of us are reading it right now. And I think I'm appreciating the thought experiment that she is going down, while simultaneously not always agreeing with her conclusions for... Okay, thought experiment, separate these 2 civilizations and set this civilization with this ideology on a planet with X resources, and this is what would naturally happen. And I think to some extent maybe she's right, but in other ways I think it's not. And I think that's okay. I think that's the point of science fiction and like engaging with someone's potential answer to a question. No one has to, it's kind of like this is her hypothesis and I would probably have a different one, and that's okay. And let's see what, based off your hypothesis, how this story unfolds. So I have been enjoying, we basically get to go between both the planets through flashbacks, which I don't know. I really thought it would be like actually kind of more like a exchange. I didn't know it would be just this one person's perspective. And I think that's just another thing. I just don't find Shevik that interesting. He's pretty, I don't know. He's just, and maybe it would have been any character. It's just that removal that you have from them. I'm just like, you do not interest me. I think your goals are admirable. I don't even disagree with a lot of your thoughts per se, but you do not interest me. So yeah, this is basically where I'm at with The Dispossessed. I think it's definitely a book where I'm like, oh, I see how you inspired this. But I liked the inspired by works more. You know, like, I definitely see how this played into, like, A Memory Called Empire. But I adore A Memory Called Empire, and I will probably have a 4-star time with this. Like, this will be good. Like, it's a good book. I am liking it. I like reading classics. I like being educated in that way. But in terms of, like, the thematic resonance and entertainment factor and writing, like, there's just too many things that aren't, you know, at a 5 out of 5 for me. Now, the book that might be a 5 out of 5. We'll see. I'm pretty excited. That is City of Others by Jared Poon, which just came out this week. Like, this just came out in the United States. I think it's getting released simultaneously in Britain by Orbit there as well. This is an Orbit release. Look how pretty this is. Oh, this takes place in Singapore, which I don't think I've ever read a work in Singapore, like maybe a short story or something, but I've never read a novel. I believe the author is from Singapore, but now I'm like completely blanking on if I'm making that up. Regardless, I am loving this book. Let me see. He's a philosopher, the governor, he lives in Singapore right now. So, yeah, that's where the author is. First of all, never been, and I am captivated by the descriptions of the urban landscape here. And this is so fun because it's like bureaucratic and it's urban fantasy at the same time. So our main, and I mean, I guess I don't know if it's fantasy. I think like on Storygraph it defines it as sci-fi. It's urban, so like there are some things that people would put in a sci-fi bucket and some people would put in a fantasy bucket. So it's, you know, speculative urban. Very fun. Very in the veins of like the type of speculative No Gods, No Monsters is. They are not the same type of book, but in terms of like genre classification. So here we have our main character, who I'm blanking on his name, Ben. Ben works for the Division for Engagement of Unusual Stakeholders, or DUOS. And he simultaneously spends so much of his time doing emails, making PowerPoint stacks, like appeasing his boss, trying to do all the bureaucratic stuff, while also using his powers as a gardener, which is explained in the story, to make sure things don't get out of hand. Because this is a classic, monsters and man live side by side. And the only reason that man don't notice is because of this effect, and I don't think it's on the back of the book, but it's funny how they explain it. And in this story in particular, these tentacle things that are happening, there's stuff that's happening. And they have to figure out why. And I think what I love about this is the voice. Like, I was instantly captivated by how the scenes are described, by how Ben thinks and reacts, because it is first person. And Ben is so funny. Like, he has a dry wit that I'm eating up. And his relationship to his coworkers, to himself, he has a very distinct, oh, he's so strong, it's gonna come bite and back him type personality. Like, he needs to be vulnerable, and we're working towards that. It's just him and 3 other coworkers on his team because they are underfunded because bureaucracy. And the humor's landing for me. The world building's cool. I like the mystery we're trying to unpack. I like that it's tying into his budding relationship with this man named Alex. There's a non-ghost ghost cat who has stolen a scarf. I am loving the dynamics of this. And I think probably recently I was like starting the show Fringe, and it gives me that, but it's like, I don't know, it's funnier. It's not necessarily less gruesome or dark. Like, there's a scene that happens early on where I'm like, woo, that's a visual. And that is kind of sad if I think about it for too long. So just all of its packaging, and particularly just how much I like want to read this right now. 5-star energy, and it's a new release. And like, how great would it be for me to finally break my drought and get a new 5-star read this year? I would love that. I would absolutely adore that. And then to wrap this up, I did have a DNF. It's probably just like a light DNF to pause, but I did try to read Silver and Blood, which is a new romantasy coming out this month. I have an arc. I read the first, like, I want to say 30 to 40 pages, which I know isn't a lot, but I think I just struggle with this author's prose, because I read a sci-fi romance by them, and I also struggled with, it was very fine. Like, that's the vibe I was getting. Like, when I read the sci-fi romance, which I can't remember the name of it, I found it was hard for me to read, just like the prose didn't move quick enough in my brain for how I want this genre to move when I'm reading it. And in particular in this one, I was just like, so is this just kind of Beauty and the Beast right now, but with none of the stuff that I like about Beauty and the Beast? It felt initially, and obviously it could open up, become its own thing, but between the writing style and the reviews I read on Goodreads, it seems like it's a fairly derivative fantasy romance. But if you like her style and you like how she does things, that doesn't really matter, right? If you're having a fun time. My issue is that it was feeling all sorts of 3-star, and it's 450 pages. And when I'm reading romantasy or romance, I need it to be at least a 4-star experience, because it's not even my favorite genre. Like, I want to be completely engaged and immersed and, like, be flipping the pages with no effort. It doesn't have to be great literature, but it has to work that way for me. And this one I just don't think was going to be enough of my stuff. So I'm putting it down. Like I said, if you like her style, it doesn't matter if it's derivative. Heck, I read so many derivative fantasy romance and romance things. Like, that's not a knock for it. It's just that since it wasn't helping me in other categories, then it would have needed to be unique, right? And then my choice was pretty much solidified, because I tried that for like an hour yesterday, and then I picked up City of Others, and then I read, without even thinking, 90 pages of it last night. So... like, and that was after I already spent an hour reading something else. So, like, I started this at, like, 7:30 p.m., and then I read 90 pages last night, which for me is a big deal. I'm a busy woman. I had to watch a video on Superman movies and how they were ranked. Like, you know, I had things to do. So, yeah, that's where I'm at with my books. Lots of stuff that's been read in the last week for some reason, but I've been enjoying my time. I'm excited to get back into this one. And then I might be picking up... Where the Axe is Buried soon. But I want to finish the Dispossessed first, because I'm trying not to have too many dense sci-fis going on at the same time. And then I'm either going to listen to The West Passage, or I might reread The Mask of Mirrors, because my friend is maybe reading The Mask of Mirrors soon, and, like, I have only been saying I want to reread it for, like, months. So it could happen. It could definitely happen. And in terms of shows, we're watching Miss Maisel. We did start season 2 of Fallout. Very good. Really like the Fallout TV show. Like, I really like it. Like, a lot. Yeah. So that's been a great time to, like, talk about late stage capitalism themes. Really good. And then like I said, I have tentatively dipped my toes into starting Fringe, which I have never watched before. And, like, credit where credit's due, that pilot was intriguing. I'm not convinced I'm going to love anybody in the cast so far. But also, it's a pilot. You got to give these things time to cook back when they had 20-some episodes a season, right? But, like, in terms of intrigue, I was like, yes. And now I'm not a baby who's scared of horror, so I can maybe enjoy it. Because basically, the kiss of death for shows when I was growing up was my dad going, oh, I really like this show. Because my dad loved really gross things. Like... And growing up, whenever I heard the X-Files song, I just freaked out. And I just ran upstairs. I probably would like the X-Files, but, like, as a child, no. Just no. So, that's it for this Friday Reads. Again, I guess let me know if you really want wrap-ups. Like, I will wrap up my books, like I said, but that's going to be, like, a once a quarter sort of thing. Or maybe once every 2 months. I don't know. It's not going to be every month. And I think I need it to still be scheduled, so once a quarter feels reasonable to me. And it feels like that could be content worth, you know, consolidating into one bucket. Since it feels like maybe with Friday Reads, it doesn't usually make sense for me to wrap up just 6 or 8 books at a time. But I don't know. You let me know down in the comments below. And if you just want to leave an emoji to let me know you're here, Is there a Cthulhu one? If there's a Cthulhu one, I want a Cthulhu one. I don't even know if Cthulhu's a thing here, but tentacles, Cthulhu, or kitty cat. This is very funny. I've had the scene with this kitty cat, and I am endlessly amused, and this cover is everything to me. It's bringing me a lot of joy. Anyways, otherwise, like if you liked it, subscribe if you want to, and I'll see you in the next one. Bye.